If you've always wanted to build and play a character in D&D that's a little more support than they are bring the hammer, but you still kind of want to bring the hammer every once in a while, then this episode is for you. Welcome to D4. So hi everybody, here at D4, each week we take a deep dive into one, sometimes two, specific character builds for tabletop role-playing games. We theorycraft about them, we crunch numbers, not with the intent to tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but with the hopes of creating something that is both really fun, but also powerful to play. So if you enjoy creating characters for your RPGs almost as much as you enjoy playing the actual game itself, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on a character that you've been thinking about building, then welcome home. This is where you belong. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. My name is Colby. Before we jump in, really quick, instead of selfishly plugging my own channel here, I really want to give a shout out to my good friend Dallin, who has a YouTube channel of his own. It's called Mr. Rogers Reviews Everything. I would consider it a huge personal favor if you would go check it out. There's a link right there, and I'll put one in the show notes too. He reviews everything from anime to movies to TV show to manga to games. He's a really great guy and a good friend. A lot of you may have seen him in our Sliding Into My DMs stuff that I used to do, or in the Tales of Veneria actual play campaign that we've got on our sister channel. He's putting out some great content. I would love it if you would go over, give him a subscribe, watch a video, give him a like, make a comment. I know he'd really appreciate it. He hasn't asked me to do this. He doesn't even know that I'm doing this, actually. I just think that the content he's producing is great and it deserves a few more eyeballs. So go and give him your own. Not actually, just watching. That would be gross. Anyway, thanks. Right, so I have been wanting to build a War Cleric forever. Seriously, for years. If you were to look at the builds that I have on my to-do list, there are only 5 other ideas that have been on there longer than build a War Cleric. But every time I think about it, I get hung up on a couple of things. First of all, the thing about the subclass that's arguably its best feature, War Priest, is fairly easily replaceable by a feat. The ability lets you make a weapon attack as a bonus action when you take the attack action, but only wisdom modifier times per day. That's a serious limitation, and if you were to take the Polearm Master feat, or even the Crossbow Expert feat, you could just get a free bonus action attack every single round, as we have often demonstrated on this channel. So okay, I guess War Priest is nice in that it lets you save a feat, and there's never enough of those, right? And you also could use a slightly more powerful weapon than the Polearm Master or Crossbow Expert feats allow, if you still want to get the benefit. And that's not nothing, but yeah, only being able to use it a few times per day is pretty limiting. On the other hand, maybe it's not that bad after all. I mean, you're playing a cleric, right? That means, I'm assuming, that you generally want to be supporting your allies, healing, raising the dead, destroying the unholy, and hey, let's play a War Cleric because being this more focused on support than a paladin, but still a character who can deal out some big damage once in a while is a cool and fun concept. My longtime viewers know that my favorite way to build a support character is to create ones who can bring fantastic support, but also hit like a truck once in a while, right? So, okay, we'll make a burst damage focused War Cleric. I think that's kind of what the War Priest feature lends itself to, being only usable a few times per day, right? That should be easy enough. But then that kind of brings me to the next reservation that I always have. If I really want to build a character for burst damage, it's going to be difficult not to multi-class a bunch, since doing so will bring a lot more burst damage than just staying straight cleric would. Not that multi-classing a bunch has ever really been a big barrier to entry for me, but my temptation here would be to take 1 or maybe 2 levels in cleric and then go 7 levels in a couple of other classes before I even came back to cleric. And at that point, you can't really say that you're building a War Cleric, right? So for the build this week, I'm going to give myself one single rule in the interest of sticking to the character concept and making it feel like an actual War Cleric, both in spirit but also in practice, at least to a point. And this rule is similar to the one that I gave myself for the Way of 4 Elements monk build that I did a few weeks ago. And it is this: I have to both start Cleric, and I can never have more levels in any other class than I do in Cleric. Sound fair? Assuming you're on board, I proudly present what I'm going to call D&D episode 128. I've got to kind of differentiate now, I think, between the Pathfinder stuff that I'm alternating between. Not the War Cleric. That feels maybe a little disingenuous. So let's just go with the War Priest. Check out this fantastic artwork by my good friend Randall Hampton. I sent him the character concept for my video each week, and each week he comes up with a fantastic rendition in beautiful, vibrant color of what he imagines that character to look like. He's amazing, and if you would like to follow him to see the other stuff that he does, or to potentially reach out and try and commission him to do some art for your character or your parties, I will, as always, put links in the video description on how to do so. Thanks, Randall. And before we jump into the build, I hope you will listen to me tell you about the sponsor this week, because they are a fantastic third-party content creator for D&D 5e, and more than ever before, as you well know, right now we really need to be supporting these amazing third-party content creators who have done so much for this game that we love. So please, don't skip ahead. The company that I'm referring to is called Kibbles Tasty, and they currently, as of this recording, have a project in Kickstarter called Kibbles Compendium of Legends and Legacies. Now, there are only a few days left to back this project. It ends March 2nd, but they have already totally destroyed their funding goal by like 8 times over at the time of this recording. So this project is greenlit and will be made. Awesome. I love seeing third-party content creators succeed right now more than ever before. All right, so this Kibbles Compendium contains so much stuff, you guys. There is seriously something for everyone here. The book is over 260 pages long and is going to get to over 300 if they hit all of their funding goals, which they are well on their way to doing. And I mean, check out the jaw-droppingly gorgeous artwork. The art alone might make the book worth purchasing, I think. My favorite inclusion in this book, of course, is the 4 new classes. The Warlord, which is like a true martial support class, even more so than the Battlemaster Fighter, right? You've got the Spellblade, another Gish, woo-hoo, the Warden, which looks like kind of a shamanistic controller, and the Occultist, a mystic follower of ancient traditions, a spellcaster. Even crazier than the 4 new classes, though, the book has over 30 new subclasses. Dragon-bound Warlocks, tree-calling Druids, the Spirit-sworn Fighter, bound to a shape-shifting weapon, that sounds really cool, or the star-summoning Astral Wizard. Want a blade-throwing, weapon-throwing Barbarian? It's there. How about a Sorcerer of Stone or Sea? Check. So many new and fun options to explore. And another favorite thing, there are over 40 new feats. This includes active martial feats that give new skills to deploy like mid-combat. It really seems to have the ability to redefine how you play a martial character. And that is something that I think D&D could use a bit more of, to be honest. But yeah, it's not just for martials. There are hundreds, yes, hundreds of new spells for all spellcasters. So do yourself a huge favor and go back this project so that you can take advantage of all the great goodies you get for backing a project while it's in Kickstarter instead of waiting until after it's published, right? It really looks amazing and gorgeous, so don't delay. Use the URL that I'm linking here, and of course I will put that in the video description. Check them out, back them. I know you won't regret it. Huge thanks to Kibbles Tasty. You guys are awesome. Congrats on hitting your funding goal, and let's jump into the build. All right, at level 1, for our starting class, yes, we're going Cleric. So when we first meet our champion, they are indeed a cleric of a god of war. But I think if possible, I'd like to be both a god of war and nature. Does such a thing exist in any Forgotten Realms pantheons or other mythologies that anyone knows of? If so, please share. If not, then we get to make up our own. I'm thinking a god represented by like a really aggressive stag, with a name like Malfurion Stormrage. But this hero is not afraid to protect both what is good and right in the world, but is interested in perhaps taking it a step further and will actively seek to put an end to those who would harm the natural world that gives us all life. As for our race, yeah, variant human, boring. You could totally go another route here. I'm tempted to take half elf, both for the additional ability score increases, but also to get access to elven accuracy. If I were playing this character but starting at a higher level, I think I probably would go that route. But with all the multi-classing that we're going to be doing, it's going to be a really long time before we get to our first feat. And getting a free feat at level 1 like variant humans get is super important, therefore, if we want to be doing respectable burst damage. So as for the free feat that I'm recommending, it's gotta be Great Weapon Master. And honestly, I really love the image that this invokes for this character. I imagine them running around with like a shield and just throwing out cantrips most of the time, heal and support and buff spells when necessary. But then once in a while, during their Nova round, they go into like Avatar of their god mode. Throw the shield down, pull out a big old two-handed hammer, and just leave a crater where an enemy used to be, and then going back to their shield in supporty ways. So yes, with Great Weapon Master, as a reminder, couple of benefits. First, if you get a critical hit with a melee weapon or kill a creature with one, you can make another melee weapon attack as a bonus action. That could be nice to help us preserve our resources a smidgen once in a while. But then, most importantly, of course, when attacking with a heavy weapon, you can choose to take a -5 to hit penalty to get plus 10 more damage. Now, yeah, you could absolutely go a different route with this character. Maybe especially if you didn't want to go variant human. I think what I would do is find a way to get the Shillelagh cantrip, either via a feat or just by taking a 1-level dip into Druid, and then just plan on using a quarterstaff and a shield all of the time instead of pulling out a big maul for your Nova round. I seriously debated doing this actually, went back and forth quite a bit myself. In the end, being slowed down by a level and passing on that flat 10 to damage from Great Weapon Master just really hurt our damage report. And like I say, I really like the aforementioned idea of like transforming into this avatar of righteous wrath with a huge hammer once in a while. So I decided to go that route. As for our starting abilities, I assume that we're using the point buy method as always and recommend taking a 15 in strength and then a +1 from variant human there, a 15 in wisdom and a +1 there, so we got 16 in both, then a 13 charisma and a 12 constitution. We're definitely going to be quite mad on this character. The 16 wisdom is by no means necessary, but I figure if the real character concept we're going for here is to be first a support and second a burst damage dealer, we ought to at least have a 16 wisdom so that our healing spells and other cleric features are at least half decent. As for starting equipment, I'd recommend going with the gold buy route here and taking chainmail armor, a shield, and a maul. You could of course use a different heavy weapon if you wanted, a great sword, a great axe, etc. I just feel like a huge hammer fits the cleric a little better, personally. But then yes, as a cleric at level 1, we get our subclass, our divine domain. And as I've said, we're going with war. And I've never used War Cleric in a build before, so let's read what Wizards of the Coast has to say about them. War has many manifestations. It can make heroes of ordinary people. It can be desperate and horrific, with acts of cruelty and cowardice eclipsing instances of excellence and courage. In either case, the gods of war watch over warriors and reward them for their great deeds. The clerics of such gods excel in battle, inspiring others to fight the good fight, or offering acts of violence as prayers. Okay. This is some of the best subclass descriptive text that exists in all of Wizards of the Coast library, as far as I'm concerned. So, as a War Cleric, like I've said, we get the War Priest feature. I talked about it in the preamble, it's the inspiration for the title of the video. I think it is the main attraction of the class, and getting it right at level 1 is pretty fantastic. So yeah, wisdom modifier times per day. When you take the attack action, you can use a bonus action to make another weapon attack. 2 maul attacks with a potential +10 to damage on a single round right at level 1 is a lot of potential pain you can be bringing to the unholy. We also get spells, of course, and War Clerics get Divine Favor and Shield of Faith for free. Divine Favor is otherwise only available to Paladins, so it's kinda neat. It gives your weapon attacks an extra d4 per hit, but unfortunately it requires concentration in order to get that, and I think we'd be better off using that for something else, especially if we truly want to consider ourselves as like a support character first. Shield of Faith might sometimes be worth considering using our concentration for, I suppose, as it gives a +2 bonus to armor class for yourself or an ally. So yeah, if you've got someone that you'd be really concerned about their survivability, then maybe consider using that once in a while. But for the rest of us, and most of the time, I assume we would want to be using Bless for our concentration, and I'm going to assume we're using it throughout this character's career. It's just that good. An extra d4 to the attacks and saving throws of you and all of your party, at least eventually, once you can upcast it, right? It's just really hard to overestimate how strong that is, especially when we're taking a -5 to hit from Great Weapon Master all of the time. In addition to those spells, I would be looking at taking the usuals: Guidance to give a d4 to an ability check, Healing Word, of course, to have a nice way to heal as a bonus action and from range. And, Healing Word is, I think, a perfect example of why playing a cleric who can attack as a bonus action once in a while is not such a bad thing if you're truly, again, going for a character who is support first and a Nova damage dealer second. You're often going to want your bonus action available, right? Or, of course, your action, whether for other spells or maybe for taking the help action, if there's no need to be healing or buffing otherwise, etc. Bringing lots of pain in a single round and then being able to devote the rest of your resources to being a support gives some fun variety and some real potency on the battlefield. At level 2, all clerics get Channel Divinity at level 2, and it can be used once per short rest for now to do one of 3 things. Turn Undead, which lets you use your action to force all undead within 30 feet to make a wisdom saving throw or be forced to spend their turns just running away from you. Harness Divine Power lets you recover a spent spell slot equal to half your proficiency bonus, though you can only do this once per day. And then, unique to War Clerics, Guided Strike, which is exactly the same, for the record, as the Conquest Paladin's Guided Strike. It lets us add a +10 to hit when we make an attack roll, and it doesn't cost like a bonus action to do this. We just make the roll, we see what the roll was, and then decide if we want to use our Channel Divinity and add a +10 to hit. That does amazing things for our Nova round, especially when we're adding that -5. When we're subtracting that -5 to hit penalty from Great Weapon Master. But at level 3, at this point in our character's career, they are feeling like they need to hone their martial prowess just a little bit more than their cleric training is allowing for, I think. So yes, we're going to take a couple levels in Paladin here. And as a Paladin 1, we would then get a couple of features: Divine Sense. This lets us use our action to detect undead, fiends, and celestials within 60 feet. We can only do this 1 plus our charisma modifier times per day, so that's twice for us. But honestly, I don't know that we'd need to do this more than a couple of times a day, if that. And then we also, of course, get Lay on Hands. It's a really fantastic and super efficient support ability, and it feels really great to me to have access to this as well as cleric features on this character. You get 5 Lay on Hands points per paladin level, and can use them as an action to restore 1 hit point to an ally or yourself per point spent. You can also use 5 points to cure a poison or disease. This is especially potent if you're out of spell slots, right? At level 4, we would be a Paladin 2, and that means we get 2nd level spell slots. Don't forget, thanks to multiclassing with Paladin and Cleric, even though we only have 1st level spells, we've got 2nd level spell slots, right? As for the 1st level Paladin spells that we get here, I would focus on things that just work regardless of our low charisma modifier. So maybe things like Ceremony, which is a decent little ritual buff or utility option, Detect Magic, Purify Food and Drink, pretty much utility and support stuff. We also get a fighting style at Paladin 2, and I guess if we were technically going for the most damage we could possibly do, we would take a heavy weapon fighting style here. I do this on a lot of characters, and I kind of go back and forth, and sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, and today I'm just not. It's not a very good fighting style. It's going to add around 1 damage on average to your heavy weapon attacks, and I think I'd just rather have the defense, or probably even better the interception fighting style, which would let you like interpose your shield or weapon when an ally next to you is getting hit, and it reduces damage by quite a bit. It's a d10 plus your proficiency bonus. So, if you want to be a great support, that is a pretty efficient way to heal your allies, just prevent them from taking damage, right? But then, of course, most importantly for our Nova round at Paladin 2, we get the almighty Divine Smite. For those who need a reminder, Divine Smite tells us that when we hit an enemy with a melee weapon attack, we can expend a spell slot to do extra damage. It's 2d8 more damage for a first level spell slot, and then it scales by 1d8 for each spell slot higher than first level that we spend, capping at 4th level spell slots for 5d8 damage. It also does an additional 1d8 damage to fiends and undead. Yeah, it's pretty tough to get away from Divine Smite if you're trying to maximize melee burst damage. Fortunately for us, it really fits like a hand in a glove for the character concept that we're going for here, so I don't feel the least bit guilty about it. But at level 5, I might feel a little guilty. Yes, we have thoroughly enjoyed our foray into further enhancing our martial prowess while continuing to bolster our ability to call down divine aid to support our allies. But at this point, we become very single-minded, forgetting our own piety and devotion for a time to focus exclusively on that martial prowess. I might even try to play this in-game, I think like a darkish time in our character's story arc. Maybe they lose their way a little bit, or feel the connection to their deity wane due to some maybe perceived unworthiness on our part, or maybe an all-consuming thirst for revenge or hatred of a particular ne'er-do-well. But whatever your reason, yes, we're taking some fighter levels here. Oh, and by the way, if you're planning on going this route, there is definitely an argument to be made for starting level 1 as a fighter, as that would mean we'd get Constitution saving throw proficiency and thus get a nice bonus to our concentration checks. And since we're planning on concentrating on Bless pretty much all of the time, that would be a nice boon. I couldn't do that and still stick to the rules that I gave myself about being a War Cleric. But if I were going to play this character in game, I would seriously consider going that route. As a fighter 1, we get Second Wind first up. Once per short rest, as a bonus action, we can heal ourselves for a d10 plus our fighter level. Nice little bit of survivability there, and uses our bonus action, which we'll often have free. And then, yes, another fighting style. And one of the main reasons I wanted to go fighter actually was for this, because I want to get superior technique. This lets us learn one maneuver from the Battlemaster maneuver list and gives us a single d6 die to use as a superiority die to fuel that maneuver. We recover that superiority die on a short rest, right? As for the maneuver that we should take, I think we gotta go with my favorite, Trip Attack. With Trip Attack, when you hit an enemy with a melee attack and decide to use the maneuver, you will first of all do an extra d6 of damage, you use your superiority die, and then force the enemy to make a strength save or they are knocked prone. This is incredibly handy for us during our Nova round, as it not only adds a little bit of damage, but then would give us advantage on subsequent attacks we make that round, since they would be against a prone enemy. And at level 6, then, yes, we'd be a fighter too, and that means the almighty action surge. The other main reason we wanted to go fighter, right? Now we can take 2 actions on our turn instead of 1, once per short rest. And yeah, there's kind of a lot of nice reset on a short rest abilities we're stacking up for ourselves, which means we're going to be able to Nova fairly consistently throughout a day, as long as we're getting short rests once in a while, right? Yeah, again, it's really difficult to resist going for action surge when you're trying to make a Nova damage character. Guilty as charged. But at level 6, it is time for our first damage report. Let's talk about what our Nova round looks like at the moment. So, I think on round 1, we're pretty much always going to be starting our combat encounters casting Bless. We're a support character, it's what we do. And I don't think we need to feel guilty about wasting our turn or anything here, as this is going to benefit our entire party immensely, no doubt. But on round 2, generally, I think we're going to be going Nova, in order to try to turn the tides of the battle in our team's favor as early as possible in the fight. In which case, we would simply approach our target and make an attack against them, applying our +10 to hit from Guided Strike if it's a low roll, because it's very important that this first attack hit. When it does, we would roll 2d6 for our Maul, +3 for our Strength modifier, +10 from Great Weapon Master, and then add a second level Smite, theoretically, for 3d8 more damage, and finally, Trip Attack, adding another d6 in damage, and then hopefully knocking them prone. I am going to assume that this works and that the enemy is prone from this point. I know they get a saving throw. It is against our strength-based DC, so I like our chances, but sure, the numbers might be a little bit high because sometimes they're going to make that save. On the other hand, I'm just assuming that we're using our guided strike on this first attack and not that we might get a decent roll once in a while and not need it and can then use it on a subsequent attack, so the numbers are going to be really close. Assuming that they fail their save against that trip, we will now have advantage on our subsequent attacks this round, which is particularly nice since that plus 10 to hit bonus only works once, right? But now that we've got them on their backs, we would action surge and swing again, adding another second level smite potentially and another plus 10 damage from Great Weapon Master. And then finally, yes, use War Priest to get a third attack as a bonus action. This time we would only have a first level spell slot left to smite with, but all told, we would be doing 7d6 plus 8d8 plus 36 damage during our Nova round, potentially. Boom. Boom. And thus, against an enemy with a 10 armor class here, we would on average do 97 damage. And against an enemy with a 15 armor class, it would be 85. That puts the holy in holy crap. That's more burst damage as a level 6 character than any other burst damage build I've done, next to the blatantly overpowered Shepherd Druid using the totally broken Conjure Animals spell. Definitely, this is the hardest hitting Nova weapon user I've built, at level 6 anyway. Why did I take so long to make a War Cleric? It's because, at least thus far, it's kind of just a War Cleric in name, right? It's a War Priest, really. That feels better. And yeah, speaking of, we are due for another level in Cleric here at level 7, so we'll be a Cleric 3. That means we get second level Cleric spells, and again, I think I'm pretty much just going to be sticking to the best support spells here. So Aid to raise party members' maximum hit points by 5, but it also heals for 5 and upscales quite nicely to 10 at 3rd level, 15 at a 4th level spell slot, right? Lesser Restoration is also great to get rid of blinded, paralyzed, poisoned, or deafened. Warding Bond is a nice way to protect an ally, but it does come at the cost of your own health. I like this spell better on like a real tank character, personally. Other notables here I think would be utility focused, things like Locate Object, Zone of Truth, Augury, and of course there is Spiritual Weapon, which is a nice way to add a little damage on your turn when you're not going Nova, since it can do damage with your bonus action, and famously doesn't require concentration, until when D&D comes out at least. Now, Spiritual Weapon we actually get for free as a War Cleric. The other one that we get for free here is Magic Weapon, which I doubt we'd be using since it requires our concentration, and we should hopefully have a Magic Weapon by now. Just in case you don't, I guess it'll be nice to have for those times that you run into enemies that are resistant to non-magical attacks. Now, at level 8, we kind of have a decision to make. There is a fork in the road. At this point, the best way to increase our damage, both during our Nova round and our non-Nova round for that matter, would be to get to extra attack, right? This is so important for us that you very well may have just wanted to, say, start with a single level in Cleric and then beeline for extra attack by going 5 levels in Paladin or Fighter. Assuming you didn't go that route because you, like me, wanted to emphasize the priest aspect of your War Priest, the question now becomes, should we go Paladin or Fighter to pick up extra attack? The Fighter path is totally viable. You'd pick up a really great subclass. I think I'd probably go Battle Master here to give us both more damage potentially on our Nova round, as well as some nice utility and support options from a martial perspective. An alternative might be Echo Knight, which could also potentially add a lot of damage. I think for me though, for this character, I'd want to go Paladin. First of all, it would help us get more and better spell slots for smiting, among other things. Secondly, their level 6 Aura of Protection is truly one of the best support abilities in the entire game. So going that route really makes me feel like we're emphasizing support first, right? Not to mention more lay on hands points and other supporty Paladin features that are available. I mean, there are some decent Paladin subclasses that would potentially let us really augment those support capabilities. And maybe most importantly, if we're making a character that we're calling a War Priest, taking Paladin over Fighter definitely feels more in line to me with the concept and the theme that we're supposedly building around. So yes, from this point on, I'm basically going to be alternating between Cleric and Paladin to try to strike that balance between fantastic support and fantastic burst damage capability. And so, at level 8, we would be a Paladin 3, and that means we get, first up, Divine Health, and this just flat out makes you immune to disease. Probably won't come up all that often, but when it does, you'll be really happy to have this. And then we get our Sacred Oath, our Paladin subclass, and you know what? Though I'm sure I've recommended it as a potential alternative in past builds, I don't think I've ever actually officially taken it in a build before. Am I wrong? Anybody? Assuming that's right, let's read what Wizards of the Coast has to say about them. The Oath of the Ancients is as old as the race of elves and the rituals of the druids. Sometimes called Fey Knights, Green Knights, or Horned Knights, Paladins who swear this oath cast their lot with the side of the light in the cosmic struggle against darkness, because they love the beautiful and life-giving things of the world. Not necessarily because they believe in principles of honor, courage, and justice. They adorn their armor and clothing with images of growing things, leaves, antlers, or flowers, to reflect their commitment to preserving life and light in the world. So yeah, that's why I was talking at the beginning about trying to find a god that could fit both these two themes of war and nature, right? We are like the Earth Firsters of the Sword Coast here. As an Ancients Paladin, then, we get at level 3 a couple of basically new options for our Channel Divinity. Unfortunately, it doesn't give us additional uses of our Channel Divinity. That would be nice. So I kind of imagine that we would use these new Paladin options rarely, if ever, but hey, having now 5 options for our Channel Divinity is pretty cool. The first new option, Nature's Wrath, just lets us use our action to cause vines to spring up and try to restrain a creature. That's really cool. The problem is, of course, that the DC that the creature would make to see if they're restrained by our vines is based on our charisma, and that the enemy gets to choose between strength or dexterity saving throw to try and resist. Yeah, not really great for this build, but I can see building around it in a really cool way that would probably involve taking a Hexblade Warlock dip, an otherworldly patron of nature, who lives in a tree branch that you use as a club. It could work. The other Channel Divinity option is Turn the Faithless, and it's pretty cool in that it's basically Turn Undead, but for Fey and Fiends, giving us a lot of potential turned creatures. And, you know, make no mistake, turning a whole group of enemies can absolutely just end a fight by itself. So that's awesome. But of course, the DC is again based on our charisma, so probably not using this a lot unless you're up against Fey or Fiends who you feel confident have a pretty low wisdom saving throw, which isn't too much of a stretch, so I can see this one getting a little more play. You do also get a couple of free spells here as oath spells, and that's nice. Ensnaring Strike lets us use a bonus action and our concentration, so hard to imagine using this spell, honestly, to cause your next successful weapon attack to potentially restrain your target, and they'd take extra damage each round if they failed their strength save against your charisma-based DC. Speak with Animals, though, the other free spell here, is often a handy bit of utility, so no complaints there. At level 9, we would be a Cleric 4, and that means we get our first ability score increase or feat, finally. And yeah, after all that whining about our low charisma modifier, you'd think I might be bumping charisma here, but no. We are exploring the limits of what's possible damage-wise as always, so I'm bumping my strength to 18. Don't forget that we have a couple of 3rd level spell slots now too, thanks to multiclassing. And that is just in time for our next damage report. Not a lot has changed for us tactically at this point compared to last check. We still don't have extra attack, but that's okay. We're here to support and Nova. We have gained 1 to our strength modifier though, and also can smite a couple of times for 4d8 if we wanted, with the 3rd attack during our Nova round smiting at 3d8. But against enemies with a 10 armor class here, we would on average during our Nova round do 117 damage, and against enemies with a 16 AC, it would be 103. Meaning we've broken the century mark, even at moderate enemy ACs. And that's awesome. Now, after getting off to a huge start, we have slowed or plateaued notably compared to other Nova builds that I've done to date at this level, but we're still comfortably like in the bottom half of tier 1. And that is with our total split focus on support and burst. Pretty impressive, War Priest. Pretty impressive. At level 10, we would be a Pally 4, and that means we get another ability score increase or feat. That's nice. Now we get to bump our strength to 20 and cap it. Hooray! At level 11, we'd be a Cleric 5. That means we get Destroy Undead, so Turn Undead now becomes Destroy Undead against undead creatures that are 1/2 challenge rating or lower. If they fail their saving throw against our Turn Undead, they just poof, skelly dust. And then we get 3rd level Cleric spells. And as usual, they are just among the best spells for their level in the entire game. So many good ones that I want, and I just can't get them all. I think you've got to take Revivify, just in case someone in your party gets killed. But beyond that, the best options I think here are Dispel Magic, Remove Curse, though curses don't come up a lot. When they do, they can be pretty nasty. Motivational Speech for a really nice pre-fight temporary hit point buff. And most importantly, I think, Aura of Vitality, which, though it requires your concentration, is best used in between combat encounters, in my opinion, to heal an average of 70 hit points over 1 minute. Super duper efficient. Of course, there are more than just support spells available here, and the best one, Spirit Guardians, is free to War Clerics. I mean, if someone else in your party is casting Bless, it's definitely worth considering going Spirit Guardians here for a nice bit of sustained multi-target damage. It's absolutely my bread and butter spell on the Stars Druid Light Cleric that I'm playing in our Anaria campaign right now, and is just a really powerful spell. The other one we get for free as a War Cleric is Crusader's Mantle, which is typically only available to Paladins and adds a d4 of damage to every weapon attack that all of your allies make within 30 feet. And again, that's really nice, but since it requires your concentration, I think I'd still plan on using Bless. To be fair, also, Spirit Shroud is available to us here, and while the d8 of damage to each of our attacks that it would add is nice, it's only more damage at lower enemy armor classes than Bless would be. After that, the additional plus to hit from Bless outweighs it, thanks largely to the -5 to hit plus 10 to damage from Great Weapon Master, right? And besides, we are support first, yeah? So bless those allies. Your entire team will be a lot better off with you using that for your concentration than Spirit Shroud, no question. Don't forget, we also get 4th level spell slots now thanks to multiclassing, and that means we can hit our 5d8 smite cap if we chose to blow the spell slot to do so. At level 12, we would be a Paladin 5, and that means finally we get extra attack. So now, yes, we can attack twice when we take the attack action, and that means when we action Surge, we'll get 5 attacks during our Nova round, if we use War Priest, right? It's been a long time coming. Some of you will argue too long, no doubt. And yeah, sure, if it were me playing this character in game, I might just go War Cleric 1, Pally 5, or maybe even 6, before looking to other classes, I think. But I'm really happy with where we are, even sticking to our rules, because our Nova damage has been freaking phenomenal thus far regardless, right? We would also here get 2nd level Paladin spells. And one of the main reasons I wanted to go Ancients Paladin was because at level 5, when we get 2nd level Pally spells, we get Moonbeam. We get Moonbeam for free, which is nice, but in my opinion, worse than Spirit Guardians if we're going to use our concentration for multi-target sustained damage. But then also Misty Step, which is typically not available to Clerics or most Paladins either. And man, Misty Step is just one of those spells that every time you don't have it, you really wish you had it, you know? Bonus action teleport. So useful. Other than that, the only 2nd level spell that we don't already have that I really want now is Find Steed. Naturally, that Paladin staple. I'm not going to try to calculate what kind of damage your steed may be doing during your Nova round here, since different tables play mounted combat rules differently, and it's not a ton of damage anyway, and you might just be using it as a controlled mount to go where you want, when you want. But if you do get to essentially have it do what you want and make attacks, then congratulations. Your numbers are going to be slightly higher than the ones that I'm reporting on. At level 13, we would be a Cleric 6, and That means that our Channel Divinity now can be used twice per short rest, and that's really nice, since now we can get that plus 10 to hit a couple of times per short rest, potentially. Or, recover a spell slot, or turn undead, etc. Of course, I'm just going to assume when I crunch numbers that we're using it twice on our Nova round, which is likely inadvisable, but it'll make our numbers look better. And we also, as a War Cleric, get War God's Blessing, and this is pretty cool. It basically gives us an unprecedented 6th option for our Channel Divinity. We can now use it when another creature within 30 feet of us makes an attack and add 10 to their hit chance. So we're basically just using Guided Strike, but on a friend. If you've got a heavy hitter in your party, especially if they make a terrible attack roll, but the enemy's just about to go down and it's a big fight and it's really close and a couple of teammates are already gone and you're out of spell slots, right? This will be pretty awesome to use and really save the day, come in clutch. All right, for our level 13 damage report, like I said, I'm just going to assume that we're selfishly using both of those Guided Strikes for ourselves. What a jerk. We've also capped our strength modifier since last check and picked up the long-awaited extra attack as well, meaning 5 attacks on our Nova round now with Action Surge. 2 of them would potentially be adding a 5d8 smite, and the other 3 would be a 4d8 smite if we really wanted to burn all those spell slots. And if we did, it's gonna be good, because versus an enemy AC of 10, we would on average do 221 damage, and against an enemy AC of 17, it would be 200 damage. And sheesh, almost double since last check. The power of extra attack when coupled with Action Surge and lots of smites. And we're getting all of this with some really solid support capabilities. So this damage kind of keeps us in the bottom half of tier 1 compared to other Nova builds that I've done at this level. And it kind of makes me feel like I should respec that Druid Cleric that I'm playing in game right now. At level 14, we would be a Paladin 6. And yeah, speaking of support capabilities, we now get, like I've said, one of the best support abilities in the game, Aura of Protection. So good. Of course, it's a lot better when we have a good Charisma modifier. For us, it just gives a +1 to all saving throws for ourselves and our allies within 10 feet, because it's based on our Charisma modifier, so maybe it's time to raise that finally. But don't forget, we also now have 5th level spell slots thanks to multiclassing. At level 15, we would be a Cleric 7, and that means 4th level Cleric spells. I would for sure take Death Ward, which is probably the strongest support spell at this level, I think. It lasts for 8 hours but does not require concentration, and makes it so that when the creature you cast it on would be knocked unconscious, they instead just drop to 1 hit point. Or if a thing would kill them outright without dealing damage, it's just flat out negated. There are times when this will just let an ally stay alive for 1 more attack against an enemy who's got multiple attacks, and it'll feel kind of lame. There are other times when it will absolutely save the day, and I would actually love to hear about your favorite Death Ward stories where it did save the day in a cool and spectacular fashion, or maybe a hilarious one. So let me know in the comments, please. As for other 4th level spell options here, Divination is a really nice bit of utility. Banishment is super strong control. Locate creatures can provide some nice utility as well. Or you could just use all of those spell slots for more smites. At level 16, we would be a Paladin 7, and that means we get Aura of Warding. This is the other main reason I wanted to go Oath of the Ancients. I think it's probably the best level 7 feature of all Paladin Oaths, especially for a character who wants to support their allies first and foremost. Aura of Warding just grants you and your allies within 10 feet of you resistance to damage from all spells. All spells. Half damage. Pretty great. And then finally for us, at level 17, we would be a Cleric 8, and that means we get another ability score increase or feat. And yeah, like I said a minute ago, I think I want to bump our Charisma here. We could, of course, bump our Wisdom, or maybe take Resilient Constitution, or a whole host of other things. As an aside, it's kind of weird to go from Pathfinder builds where you're just inundated with feats every single level and there are hundreds to choose from, back to D&D where you end up only taking maybe a couple over your entire character career most of the time. But yeah, I think that since our Charisma is at 13, taking a half feat here to bump it to 14 and pick up something else useful would be the way to go personally. So I'm going to recommend that we take Telekinetic. Not only would it let us bump that Charisma to 14 and thus the saving throws of ourselves and everyone within 10 feet of us by 2, in addition to some other minor paladin benefits. It would give us a really nice, reliable use of our bonus action when we weren't otherwise using it. Telekinetic, as a reminder, lets you move a willing ally 5 feet or an unwilling creature if they fail their strength save against your charisma-based DC. So more often than not, I imagine we'd be using this on our allies, getting squishier and or ranged friends out of reach of enemies so that they can retreat without taking an opportunity attack, or moving them out of the area of effect of a harmful spell, or maybe nudging a melee ally just a little closer to their quarry, etc. Always a useful option. War Clerics also get Divine Strike at this level, but if you've followed this guide thus far, you should instead, I think, take Blessed Strikes, assuming you have access to Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, since Blessed Strikes lets you get an extra 1d8 damage on either a weapon attack or a cantrip, and Divine Strikes only applies to weapon damage. Now, sure, that scales to 2d8 at Cleric level 14, but we ain't gonna get there. Finally, don't forget that we do have 6th level spell slots now if we wanted to upcast one of our lower level spells, or sure, just keep smiting for 5d8 all day long. And so, for our final damage report, the only things that have changed for our Nova round are the extra d8 from Blessed Strikes and the fact that we could now smite for 5d8 on every single one of our attacks during that Nova round. I'm not suggesting that you do this. In fact, I think I would suggest that you not do this, except in the most extreme of circumstances. But we could. So let's see what our damage would look like if we did. Against enemies with a 10 armor class, we would on average do 241 damage, and against enemies with an 18 armor class, it would be 217. And yes, while we have kind of plateaued here a little bit again compared to other Nova builds at this level, it puts us more kind of in the middle of tier 2 by comparison. Honestly, we have so much more support capability than the vast majority of those Nova builds that I don't feel bad about that at all. So let's wrap it up with some final thoughts. The tier score for this character, if you take all of the damage that they do at all of the enemy armor classes that we report on at each of the damage reports, and just average it all into one big number, we come up with a 143. And that lands them in very last place of tier 1, 4/1000ths of a point above the Lockeden Bard, my first character in the Tales of Veneria campaign. And that really impresses me, to be honest. Now, I'm guessing that some of you are going to be a little bit annoyed that this build wasn't more of a War Cleric, and I get it. But here's the thing, hear me out. In my opinion, most of the best stuff that we get from clerics we can get at relatively early levels. The subclass features, the channel divinity, even most of what a good support character needs from spells are available at fairly low levels. Sure, it'd be great to pick up the heal spell or raise dead or power word heal even eventually, among others, right? But man, 3rd level spells get us 90% of what we need from support spells, I think. So when you consider that, peppering a dash of fighter in and a healthy heaping of paladin will really let us stay true to the concept of a real cleric or priest devoted to a god of war who hits like a ton of bricks once in a while still being a super fantastic support character most of the time otherwise. That feels pretty amazing to me, and I really think I might respec my character in my game to fit this mold a little better, honestly. And one of the main reasons, you know why? Here's a little spoiler alert for those watching those Tales of Veneria games. I just found a Staff of Power on my character. Holy crap. I gotta put that thing to some good use. But anyway, that is the build for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you know how much I love you, because I do. You guys are awesome. Thank you for watching, supporting, subscribing, liking, commenting, all the things that you do. Consider joining as a channel member if you really want to support the channel and get some cheat sheets on the character builds that I do each week. I hope you have a really great day and a fantastic week, and that you stay safe, and that you be good and kind and happy, and that I see you again really soon. But until then, take care. Bye. Hi, how's it going? Man, I have been trying to record this video for hours. Interruptions. Some of them pleasant, some of them less pleasant. I am not worried if it's love, she said. Then we're gonna have to think about the consequences. And she can't stop shaking, and I can't stop touching her in this time. When kindness falls like rain, it washes her away. And Hannah begins to change her mind. These seconds when I'm shaking leave me shuddering for days, she said. And I'm not ready for this sort of thing. If the only song by the Counting Crows that you're familiar with is Mr. Jones and Me, then you are missing out on quite a fantastic library of music. We got some fighter jets flying overhead or something. To have, don't say on hand, that's too many hands. The only things that have for a nice bit. I live pretty close to an Air Force base. And most of the time, you don't really notice it, but when you're trying to record a video, you do. Oh, Divine Strike. No, it is Divine Strike. Oh, that's right. Okay. Me. I keep saying that. So, don't say that. It. My gosh. I need to change that in my notes. Blah, 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 blah. For breaking the sound barrier, those jets are sure going slow. Well, whatever. Don't say that. Oink. My hair looks so tall. Why is it so big? It's getting all curly. Look at that. Oink, oink. This is like the 7th overhead flyby I'm experiencing right now. Don't even say that. Destroying the unheli... I've got a ghost. Okay. Let's roll up our sleeves and get to work here.